And Georgia will face the coach that led the Dogs defense last season, Dan Lanning, now the head coach at Oregon. Ducks and Dogs among the notable games in week 1. Biggest game on the schedule, a top 5 showdown between the Buckeyes and Fighting Irish. Ohio State alum Marcus Freeman facing Ohio State as he begins his first full season as Notre Dame head coach. Irish are 17.5-point dogs on the road in Columbus. To welcome in CBS Sports HQ college football analyst Barrett Sallee. We've got college football playoff implications in week 1 with a monster matchup in Columbus. Barrett, can Ohio State afford to lose this game and still make the playoff?
Yeah, I think it can. I think Notre Dame, even if it beats Ohio State, will probably suffer a loss or two along the way. So I think natural progression would weed the Irish out, so to speak. And I think for Ohio State, this is a learning experience. I still think they can run the table in the Big Ten. Look, I think Ohio State, you can have a stumble somewhere and be fine, even if it's against Notre Dame, because I don't buy Notre Dame running the table. So even if they beat Ohio State, they're not going to block the Buckeyes. So I think the biggest thing about this game is that the loser's margin for error is razor thin. The landscape of college football always dictates what the college football playoff requirements will be. I think for Notre Dame and for Ohio State, 1 loss is pretty much going to get you there regardless. So, for me, I just want to see what happens with Ohio State. If they can take care of business against Notre Dame, that is going to be a big statement because this Ohio State team, I think, is very motivated. They're very talented, and I think they've got all the pieces in place for a run.
Yeah, Ohio State is a 17.5-point favorite, and Ohio State alum Marcus Freeman is aware of the spread. Here's what he had to say on Monday.
Well, I didn't know that. I'm going to write that down. You said 17.5 points, right? We'll use that in the team meeting today, It's good to know. I haven't paid much attention to the spread, but.
They know. Barrett, they know. The
coaches, they always know.
They know. Do you think his team keeps it close, or is this a Buckeyes blowout?
I think it can be both, but I do think Notre Dame will cover. I think this is one of those times where you have to look at the situation, right? Tyler Buchner going up at quarterback for Notre Dame against C.J. Stroud, a guy who I think can win the Heisman Trophy this year. Do you really trust Buchner in a shootout? I don't. However, I do think Notre Dame is good enough defensively to at least limit those Ohio State possessions, and Notre Dame's offense is going to do enough. So will Ohio State control the game from the outset? Yeah, I think they will. So, but to me, 17.5 points, that's just disrespectful. You're talking about the number 5 team in the country. Now, we can argue whether Notre Dame's overrated or not, but if you say they're not, they're still probably a top 10 team. So to me, I think more like a 2-touchdown game. If it is a blowout, that's fine. It still allows for a Notre Dame backdoor cover. So take the Irish.
Yeah, as an Ohio State fan, I would like this to be a blowout, but as a college football fan, I kind of want it to be a little bit close. So it's not just like, okay, it's over at halftime. So we'll see how that plays out Saturday night in Columbus. Georgia is a 17-point favorite in week 1 against Oregon, facing the coach that led the Dogs defense last season, Dan Lanning, now the head coach at Oregon. Stetson Bennett is back to run the offense, looking to find his tight end Brock Bowers early and often. Georgia will see another familiar face, former Auburn quarterback Bo Nix, who helped Auburn beat Oregon in his first start of his college career. You remember that. Now getting a fresh start with the Ducks. Barrett, how are you evaluating this matchup at Mercedes-Benz?
Well, it's confusing, man. Lines all over the country. Got to connect all these dots to sort of connect all these storylines. But look, we saw Bo Nix as an SEC quarterback with better talent, and he really was erratic, right? He was either really high or really low, and there was no in between. You're going up against a Georgia defense, and if you look historically at Bo Nix against Georgia defenses, it really has not looked well at all. So for me, I think the biggest thing is, do they have enough firepower offensively outside of Bo Nix to at least keep this close? And the answer is no. I just think with this specific situation, you could not have drawn up a worse opponent for Dan Lanning in his first year and first game as the Oregon head coach. I don't think Bo Nix can move the football against a Georgia defense that, granted, is going to take a little bit of a step back, but you're talking about a rich man's problem if you're talking about Georgia's defense taking a step back. I don't think Bo Nix can solve that riddle. He couldn't at Auburn, and he can't this time.
Barrett, Georgia has a favorable schedule after week 1. Did they make it back to the college football playoff? Yes, -120, no, -110.
I'm going to say no. I think they go undefeated in the regular season and lose to Alabama in the SEC championship game. Now, I know the next the question is going to be, well, it happened the reverse last year. Georgia lost and got in and won it. Okay, the landscape of college football shifted in that direction. To me, I think you're going to have a one-loss Clemson conference champ, a one-loss Utah conference champ. I hate the fact that the selection committee factors in conference championships, but it's the way things operate. Last year, there really was no intrigue on Selection Sunday. If you have a Selection Sunday with a one-loss Georgia that didn't win the SEC compared to two other conference champions, those conference champions are going to get in. So to me, I think it's going to be bad luck for Georgia. I think they're probably one of the 4 top teams in the country, but I don't think they're going to be one of the 4 invited to the college football playoff.
Well, as you remember, Georgia beat Alabama in the national championship. Was kind of surprising how big the margin was in that game. Alabama, meantime, begins its season at home against Utah State on Saturday. Heisman Trophy winner Bryce Young and linebacker Will Anderson Jr. looking for redemption this season. They lost offensive tackle Evan Neal, receivers Jamison Williams, John Mechie to the NFL, and earlier this month, receiver JoJo Earl broke his foot, expected to miss 6 to 8 weeks. Barrett, what's the biggest question facing Alabama going into this season?
Oh, it's the offensive line. It was the biggest question 2 springs ago. It was dreadful last fall, and it was bad this spring in the spring game. So, it's one thing for it to become, a problem once in a while. This is the trend. Alabama's offensive line is not good, and it hasn't been good for a very long time. I don't necessarily know if you can fix that through the transfer portal. They got Tyler Steen. We'll see how that goes. But to me, what Bryce Young did last year was unbelievable, considering he got no help up front. If they could fix their offensive line, more than just be average on the offline, you're talking about Bryce Young possibly putting up the best season in college football history. But the fact of the matter is, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. This is 3 straight times that Alabama has had bad offensive lines, 2 springs and an entire fall. I don't trust them right now. They're going to have to prove me wrong.
Barrett, thank you. Alabama has reached the CFP title game in 6 of the past 7 years, winning 3 national championships in that span. And Alabama is the favorite to win the national title at plus 180, followed by Ohio State at plus 300, and Georgia at plus 425 to run it back this season. The College Football Playoff National Championship we played at SoFi Stadium.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.